Along a lush Norfolk County road divides a farmer's field of dreams sown with kernels of love. Known worldwide as Ontario popcorn, but in the trade and retail world, this 3 generations old company is Uncle Bob's Popcorn, and the product pops out of the title.
We got into growing colored corn, purple, blue, red, white, and along with the yellow, but 2 kinds of yellow, mushroom and butterfly. Mushroom corn's the round corn. It's what everybody wants to sugarcoat. It takes a beating. It can go to the fair. And the butterfly corn is the corn that's offered in the theaters. It's the nice, tender eating corn. And then the colors were just visually attractive and have all of their own little nuances about what's good and bad.
You can find Uncle Bob's Popcorn in 42 Food Basics locations in Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener, Cambridge, all the way down and through into Windsor, and they're in a handful of Loblaws and Zehrs. The specialty item can also be found at fair booths and local mom-and-pop shops. The story of Uncle Bob's Popcorn is a homegrown and heavily researched one, but it was a unique alternative when tobacco, soybeans, and corn dominated the local market.
Uncle Bob's Popcorn, otherwise known as Ontario Popping Corn, was started by 4 farmers, my father being one of them, and they each owned land down here in wonderful Norfolk County. And there was a shift in the amount of land that was required for their specific crops. They decided they'd research, and they found out that the history of popping corn in Ontario is that we grew a little bit and imported a lot. And so they thought, well, you know, we've got sandy land here, we should be able to give it a go. Interestingly enough, there was a fair little bit of popcorn being grown in Ontario, but consequently, all those guys were getting to the end of their run. So there was sort of a little bit of a void there.
They experimented with it for a year and confirmed that it was compatible with the soil. They accumulated some baseline equipment and got started.
I had just gotten married to my lovely wife, Livia, and we had a pretty good inventory of popcorn that those guys had paid to grow. And so Olivia and I, we just started, we bought the company, and we started selling the corn and kind of peddling it out the door, and it was a hobby because I was already growing tobacco at the time, and I was very busy. And we didn't have a young family at that time or nothing, it was just Liv and I. So I had free time in the winter.
Growing future popping corn is very similar to other crops, but the process and end product is very different to the fate.
So as far as growing popcorn, it's very similar to just a regular corn crop. We're planting at a very similar time, you know, late April, early May, depending on soil temperatures and everything as far as, you know, growing conditions. But ideally we like to have everything in for sure by the beginning of May. And then basically, again, we're very similar to other corn growing conditions. You're letting it grow. We're doing our weeding. The biggest difference for us is that we have to irrigate all of our crop. With regular corn, you're looking at crop insurance. If it doesn't rain, we don't have crop insurance. If we can't grow corn, we don't have any corn to sell.
Uncle Bob uses good old-fashioned natural air, making the drying process between 6 to 8 months in custom-built bins. The corn is constantly checked during that time, and team members look specifically for moisture, checking for any irregularities. After the drying period has ended, the corn is brought into the warehouse. The first step inside is the dust separation process, where a lot of little pieces of foreign debris, dirt, dust get sucked out. Next, the corn goes through a screen cleaner, which sorts by size and removes more foreign objects not already picked up. Next, it goes over what is known as a gravity machine, and it uniquely sorts by density. Corn bounces across the top as air is pushed up from underneath, making sure the kernels will pop very nicely, while also getting rid of all the small cracked kernels, again, other pieces of debris. The final process before packaging goes through Uncle Bob's most recent purchase, a pretty cool piece of technology known as the Sortex. So then every kernel is scanned by a computer and cameras, and there is a little belt of air jets that, as the corn falls through it, blows out anything that is identified by the computer as not a perfect kernel for popcorn.
We'll go through and we'll pick out 20 kernels that we don't like. We have to self-identify it first, and then those will go through the machine, and then the key machine will know that those are ones that we don't want, and so it'll take pictures of those on all different angles as it falls through. The ironic piece about it is because it's air jets that do it, it pops as it does it, so as the corn's falling through it, it kind of sounds like popping popcorn.
So even if it has a black speck on it, they can tune that machine into exactly what they want it to find. Even if it's a piece of debris that slipped through, the Sortex will spit it right out.
When you're looking at your popcorn, the really important part of it is the hull. That's what keeps the pressure inside of it for it to pop and expand those starches. You can't scratch that hull, you can't have any nicks or cracks in it. Again, if you use heat, it's going to crack it because it'll basically cook it. It won't pop it because it's too high of moisture at the time, but it'll just cook it, and then you're not going to get a good product out of the end process of it.
Kernels are put into 2,000-pound tote bags and will be shipped in them, or to be placed in 50-pound bags, or to be sealed nice and airtight into retail bags.
And then once it's in those 2,000-pound bags, before it goes through that final packaging process, everything comes inside the warehouse where we're standing right now, which is fully climate controlled. So we don't use any pesticides or fumigants on our popcorn, which is a really nice selling feature that a lot of people like, because we're not putting any sprays or anything on it, especially, so you're getting a nice clean product. And why it's climate controlled in here is because we don't use any of that, so we keep all the bugs out. There's no mice or anything that gets in here. It's a really nice, clean, controlled environment in here, so that helps us keep everything really clean until it's finally packaged and goes out the door.
All the other corn that doesn't pass through the cleaning process doesn't go to waste. The team sells most of the leftover bits and sells them to sheep farmers, but Uncle Bob's team also uses it to heat their farm shop they use to maintain equipment and cleaning facilities in the wintertime. The amount of popcorn that moves through the facility changes monthly and seasonally, being slower in the summer than the winter. Overall average volume, a couple million pounds each quarter of a year.
I've grown up on this farm my entire life. My dad grew up on this farm his entire life, as well as his dad was here for quite a while, so we're not going anywhere. But Norfolk County is a great place to grow crops. Norfolk County is known as Ontario's garden, so you can find all sorts of fruits, vegetables, so yeah, your sweet corn, watermelons, peppers, tomatoes, and popcorn.
With the next generation taking interest in the family business, Uncle Bob's popping corn will be a Norfolk specialty, so long as the butter holds out. Proudly made in Ontario.